Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure if that's working or not. Are we good for sound? Testing? Beautiful. I am prone to talk for a long time, so I've just activated my stopwatch. I'll try and keep to my 10 minutes. Could I just have an indication? Principals, could you put your hands up? Okay, and could you put your hands down? It's just like I like ordering principals about, basically. Principals who have travelled overseas as part of international student recruitment? Okay, that's the first thing that I would be interested in. I would strongly encourage any principal who hasn't taken part in an overseas trip. You even might have a small program, but I think unless you've actually travelled overseas, gone through the process, you don't really have an appreciation of what your international student coordinator is necessarily doing and the challenges that they face. And if you have one market that's particularly strong, perhaps let's say China or Vietnam, until you've actually been in country, you don't necessarily, I think, have that appreciation of where the kids are coming from, and certainly what your IS International Student Coordinator is doing. When I was appointed as principal 5 years ago, my voice changed. And I was really excited because I had an international student program, and of course what that meant is that in otherwise a fairly monocultural school, it meant that we would have this great international mix of cultures. It would give me the opportunity to travel because it was basically all about me. It would also bring in a lot of money for the school, which was great. The students that we were attracting, of course, would be highly academic, and they would all have an excellent work ethic. They would all have fantastic behaviour because, as we know, international students are very respectful, and there wouldn't be any challenges at all. So for those that did put their hands up and have travelled and worked in the international student space for some time, it was a bit of a shock. The first point I would make is that the most important role in having a great international student program is to have an awesome international student coordinator. Without that key appointment, you really are going to be struggling. So principals, if you're new to this space, make sure you really do look after your international student coordinator. You need to appoint the right type of person, and it's somebody who really is prepared to go up and beyond and then continue going up and beyond and be available 24 hours a day, because as we know, when students are in country, legally speaking, principals, you are in fact the parent. So we had an international dinner for our host families recently, and I explained that I was their father, and quite a neglectful one at that, and thank goodness that Angela, our international student coordinator, is their mother, because she does all of the great things, and for me being a parent, I'm perhaps somewhat distant. I guess what the thing that I would like to say is that I've been asked to speak today about marketing and building a program, but I don't want to take away from the fact that anything to do with students is a people business. Okay, it's the people that you deal with. The homestays are very individual, the students are very individual, the parents are indeed individuals. So I'm just a little at risk of sounding like a business person. I have had some background in business and marketing, so I'd just like you to take my comments in context of I'm talking from a marketing and business development point of view. The first thing is, when you're dealing in our space is largely in the Asian market, and working in those Eastern settings, it's very much about building up relationships, and anyone who is not in this for the long term is going to be ultimately really, really disappointed. Working in Asian communities, you know that you have to put in the time of building up relationships first before you end up doing business, so to speak, and that's across the board. Okay, and I think that's one of the things that our students benefit when we do have international students in our school, understanding the depth of how important it is to build relationships. When you do travel, and the majority of travel we've done, we try and get overseas at least twice a year. We generally travel with the department, and what I would say is that it's really important to be part of a team. You often see to be honest, often people who are new to the international student space, and it almost becomes somewhat like of a competitive market. So you're in, you know, you might be presenting to agents and people are thrusting their brochures forward, you know, promoting one school over another. And I think the subtlety of the cultures that we present in, they can recognise whether you're genuinely a cohesive team or whether you're literally being self-promoting. And I don't think that that's the image that we want for Victorian education, and I don't think it's a positive image anyway. So I know that certainly most of the trips, and I've travelled with a number of people here, I think the majority of them, we've really tried to look after each other. It's actually tough. Anyone who thinks that, you know, travel overseas is a glorious and wonderful thing hasn't been on a department tour, because the schedules are inevitably quite punishing. You know, often you might be, if you've got, pardon me, if you've got an established program, you might be meeting with parents after school, going out to dinner, doing in-country feedback sessions, and then you've got to front up, you know, at the start of each day. So, you know, some of the trips are 2 weeks, and it can certainly be quite a punishing thing. And of course, if you are the principal, sometimes that does have a really quite positive effect when you're in country. But you've also got to be, you know, monitoring email and doing all of those sorts of things at night to keep the school running. So I just want to really re-emphasise that if it becomes a competitive thing where you're sort of trying for one-upmanship over other schools, it really does present a terrible image. I think when you're talking to people in any marketing sense, the importance of visuals and story are just paramount. So we certainly, in our marketing brochures and in any presentation that we give, emphasise a lot of pictures and stories of students who have gone before and the success that those students have had. I just also want to mention that it seems to me highly unlikely that you know, like often you'll come back and you'll go, how many did you get? And somebody will say, oh, you know, I got 2 or whatever. I have been to the point where people have taken me out to dinner, had photos with the grandparents, and I've never seen that student again. Okay, so let's understand the dynamic. We represent Victorian education, we travel as a team, we do emphasise our points of difference between schools, and I think that's really important, but at the end of the day it's about selling Victorian education more widely than one individual school alone. In terms of how TC separates itself, we emphasise, because we now actually don't have year levels, which is an interesting development, but we emphasise the 3-year VCE, the fact that we are a small school. We have an elite sports development program in basketball, which has attracted international students. We've got a full gym program, which the students can participate in for free, and we have a strong entrepreneurial focus within the school. In terms of relationships, I think it's interesting. Kids are kids no matter where they come from in the world, and whilst parents might certainly hope that a trip to Australia might straighten out their wayward child, at the end of the day they actually know what their kids are like. So some do come with strong work ethics, but sometimes they don't come with strong work ethics, and whilst they might hope for, you know, entry into Melbourne Uni at some point in the future, it's really important to be honest in your communications with parents. I think over-promising is a big issue in dealing with international parents. So it is important to be honest and communicate regularly if the students that you've picked up are perhaps not heading down the pathway that their parents might want. I think career planning is just so important for all students in schools, and I think there have been so many developments in the tertiary space at the moment that even for our local students I don't think we're doing it particularly well across the board. But particularly when it comes to dealing with international students, there has to be a continual focus on what is this child's pathway, how can we get them there, preferably through an open ATAR selection, but if not, what are the backdoor pathways into the courses where these students have a particular passion. What would the ideal situation look like? Ideally, if you've got the ability to have a native speaker on staff within your school, that's obviously a huge advantage when you're selling the concept of your school to parents. If you're able to travel regularly every year to that particular country, you can then do in-country reporting, so you actually meet the family, tell them how they're going. As a principal, I'm lucky I come from a small school, 620 students, so I do know the students, but if you are from a larger school, it's important to do your homework if you're the principal and you perhaps might not have direct day-to-day contact with those students, and bring the anecdotes, bring the pictures of the students, you know, taking part in the school, I think is a great thing. I've noticed that my time is up, so I'm going to move very quickly to the challenge. Our particular challenge is that we don't become China-centric within our school. We used to have quite a mix of 11 different nationalities. We still have around that number, but we now have 45 out of the 65 have China as their home country. And whilst that actually provides a lot of economies of scale in a business sense and allows us to really develop that space and improve the experience for those kids, I think in terms of our home population, if we can make it a truly global community at school, we're going to be far better off. And of course, I think the unspoken thing in any international program is to get true integration within your school community.